Hello everybody, Cone Dodger here. Welcome back to Automation. Continuing our Japanese motor recreation mini-series. I've now officially named it. We are going to move on to a much requested series of engines. And that is the Honda B16 engines, which is a series of motors that has quite the cult following, and people are just very passionate about them. So I've actually I've done quite a bit of research to try and make sure I get these as accurate as possible. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of hands-on experience or knowledge of that series of motors. I'm kind of flying blind. Luckily, there is a ton of information out there about them because they are so popular. But as with all the other motors I've looked up, there's just so much conflicting information. So bear with me. If you see any mistakes that I've made, please feel free to let me know. I will correct it in the future. Alrighty, so the first motor we're going to work with is the earliest example, or one of the earliest examples, the B16A, and that is the first motor to feature what Honda refers to as VTEC. It's obviously a 4-cylinder with a aluminum block. The motor is 81 on the bore and a 77.4 on the stroke. Okay, so there we go. There's your 1595cc or 1.6 liter motor. They used a forged steel crank. That is something we haven't really messed with in the past. Unfortunately, Automation kind of just says that a forged steel crank is only good for max torque, but it was also a very well balanced crank, which made it so it was a little bit more stable at high RPM. Connecting rods, they are cast. The pistons and the connecting rods are actually a chromoly kind of alloy that was specially made, specially tuned for this motor. We're kind of restricted in that sense, so we're just going to go with hyperutectic cast and a regular cast connecting rod. As far as the year goes, I'm going to bring it down to, say, 95. It's a little bit later than they started these motors, but this motor went until 98, so it's within the range. And I think that will give us the quality we need, which also I need to bump up, because these were very high quality bottom ends. Okay, moving on to the top end. What we have is a dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, aluminum head, and a 10.4 to 1 compression, which you can see is that's getting pretty close into the high range. These were not meant for necessarily their economy cars. They really intended these to be sports motors. So here we're going to go with our VVL, and I'm going to stick with the normal cam profile at the bottom and stick with this sport. Actually, let me go a little bit higher. Sport secondary cam profile. It's not seen here. It'd be cool if they did model that, but I guess that's a whole lot of work for something really small. But what it would actually do is there would be an extra lobe on the cam that was higher, had a higher lift than the base cam lobes. So when it hit a certain RPM, it would engage this more aggressive lobe, and that's when you will basically you'll see the VTEC kick in, as they like to say, because it's in these motors. It was a pretty drastic, especially in the early ones. It would go from normal cam profile and click, it would be into that high aggressive cam profile. So you really get a punch right when that hit. In the newer motors, it's not quite that significant. Okay, moving on to the style. It's got a rounded design. typically with a wrinkle finish. Let's see. Yep, that looks good. I think it came in red or black. We'll stick with red. I like the way that looks. My roommate would approve. He's big into these motors, owning a EM1. But moving on, they are naturally aspirated. No turbos here, at least not from the factory. They are injected with a multi-point, single throttle body. We're going to say standard intake for now. We may bump that up later on. They run on super unleaded, as they say. It's what would be referred to here as premium, but it's a 93 octane here, so we will go with that. We'll keep it fairly lean. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Pretty aggressive timing. Here's the kicker. This RPM limit. For this first generation motor, the RPM limit, or the red line I should say, is 8,500 RPM. So way on up there. And that's just where the red line starts. They actually had a rev limit in the 87 range. That's a little crazy. I don't think this would ever work with that on the game anyway. So leave it 8,500. That's where the red line starts. That's where Honda says you're an idiot if you keep pushing it past this. And we all know that people do. Then they blow their engine up and complain that nobody told them that it would happen. And we move on. Short cast on the header. Nothing too fancy there. About 2¼ inch exhaust system. We'll do a 3-way cat. A straight through and then a reverse flow, because usually they have like a resonator than a regular muffler. We'll bump that up a little bit. Alrighty, so there we have it. There's a B16A1, or so we hope. Also looks new. I don't remember seeing the mass airflow model before. Maybe I just never paid attention to that. Anyway, let's see. We are looking for 168 horsepower at 8,200 RPM and only 116 foot-pounds of torque at 7,200 RPM. Kind of a shot in the dark here, so I could be pretty far off. This could use quite a bit of tuning in the end. Yeah, it definitely looks like we're pretty far south of our goal at the moment. So not too much of a kick up here. So it may be a little not aggressive enough on the variable valve lift. Looks like we're having some bottom end issues. I may increase the gear up to 98. Try and help that out. On the top end, let's go with a 75 here and 45 on the regular cam profile. Okay, so now the chart's bumping up a little bit. Very light motor, 246 pounds. It's a lightweight. There's 150. Still got a little bit ways to go here. Doing really good on our octane. Not good on our bottom end yet. Let's see. Could go more aggressive on ignition timing. I'm not 100% sure how this relates yet. Would a full advanced setup be in a stock motor? I'm kind of leaning towards probably not. But I seem to be needing it in order to meet the numbers that I'm seeing. So we'll work with it for now. I want to do a performance intake because Honda was really smart about stuff like this, keeping their flow optimized. So we'll say it's performance intake. Didn't look like we made too many strides, but still got some tricks up my sleeve. It seemed like in earlier builds of the game, the variable valve lift had a little bit more noise associated with it than it does now. Now it's very linear. You don't really hear it, quote-unquote, kick in. It just kind of happens. You can see it in the chart, and bam, there's that second cam profile. We did make a little bit of an improvement, but I think I am going to go almost to a full race on the second cam profile. 85. And let's see. Not too much else I can do. Maybe go a little bit up on the base time or the base cam profile. Okay, now we should be in the ballpark. Very much so in the ballpark. 165 horsepower, 8,500 RPM, so a little bit late. But 118 foot-pounds of torque at 6,400 RPM. That's not too bad. That's pretty close. I wish I could get the bottom end to work though. I know they were using very high quality connecting rods, but heavy duty does not help their RPM. As someone in one of the previous videos helped me out with that. Told me I was goofing up on that. I-beam steel. I don't believe they're using it. I know a lot of people put them in these motors to improve their bottom end performance. I'm not sure that's going to actually fix our issue though. It did not. So let's go back to cast there. Go up on year again, up to 2000. And I'm going to increase the quality on the top end and decrease our secondary valve, or secondary cam profile, to try and match numbers a little bit better. If it ends up I can't get it to not tell me it has a bottom end issue, that's okay. We'll move on knowing that, because we got the numbers that we needed. Okay, so now we're making the right power. Yep, like I said, still have that issue with bottom end. But I'm just going to let that be, because there's not much I can do about it. So there we have it. As close as I can get it. If you have any suggestions on how I could get it closer, please let me know. I know there's tons of people out there that know a whole lot more about these motors than me, and I'm very open to suggestions. So this is the B16A, also referred to as the B16A SIR2. So, that one is saved. I don't need to go ahead and start from scratch for our next motor because it's just a next generation of the same basic structure. That's going to be the B16B. There are other B16 motors to work with. There's the popular B16A1, but it's actually a lesser performing motor, and I felt it was a little redundant with the B16A, so I'm just going to stick with doing the B16B before I move on to anything else. and very slight changes. It's a little bit newer, a 97 to 2000 in the Civic Type R, which a lot of the US guys really want to get their hands on, and it was a very popular swap. The main difference is in the compression. We go up to a 10.8. The bore and the stroke are exactly the same. All of that is exactly the same. It was just a little bit more higher tuned, obviously that higher compression, to produce 185 horsepower. So I'm going to go on our quality here and here to try and get these numbers. I'm likely going to have to also go more aggressive with that cam as well. .72, so a nice little increase, just with the compression and some minor changes. But 185 is still pretty far away. So I'm going to go up to a 55 on our base and a 90 on our VTEC. I'm going to continue to call it that because if I don't, I feel as though I'm going to be lynched. So, maniac Honda guy behind the dark alley. It was a VTEC motor. I'm sorry. I don't think they're all like that. I kind of do, but I don't. Alright, 177. Still not quite there. What happens if we go full race? It's not a full race cam, it's just a full race duration at high RPM. And that's kind of the whole point of it. Because you wouldn't want a motor that has a race cam down low on the street. And there you have it. It's coming a little bit late, but 183 horsepower. That's kind of the numbers they were getting out of these suckers. That's really freaking impressive if you ask me. I'm no Honda fanboy by any means. 183 horsepower at 8,500 RPM out of a 1.6 liter engine. That's pretty groundbreaking, and that's what made these so popular. Nobody had really seen that before this engine. We saw the Toyota, the 4AGE, and their Beams motor later on. So there were alternatives, but I would say Honda probably perfected it, or at least the earliest on. Okay, so there we go. That's the number I wanted to see. So we'll save that one. It's the B16B. Alrighty. So I'm actually going to call it an episode right here. We'll probably be doing, I would say, at least 2, if not 3 more episodes in the Honda series of motors. I still have the B18 motor that I would like to do, the B18C most specifically. There are other ones as well, the B18 C5, which was a more US market motor. I'll choose maybe 2 of those to do as well. And then I want to go back and do some D series motors, the LS motor. Let's see, the F series motor, the Honda S2000 engine, because that one is probably the pinnacle of Honda's 4-cylinder engines, at least for street. And then possibly touch on the K series motors, but possibly not, since that's not really in the theme of this little mini series. I may touch on that later once I get into more modern engines. But for now, let's go back to our list. We have added some Honda flair to this list. So we got some Nissan, some Toyota, and some Honda. Certainly a whole plethora of other manufacturers and motors I'd like to build. I I want this inventory to be huge. I want there to be maybe 30, 40 engines to choose from, all from this era. That would be pretty cool. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.